who presents Hancock and Kelley.
A good Sunday morning to you. Welcome to Hancock and Kelley on Fox 2, where we take on the top issues of the week. On the right, John Hancock.
Good morning.
On the left is Michael Kelley.
Good morning.
And I'm Andy Banker. On the agenda, St. Louis reeling after relentless lawlessness in the city claims another young victim, 16-year-old hockey player Colin Brown. As bullets continue to rain terror in St. Louis, Republicans in Jefferson City look to ban any and all local gun restrictions. Plus, 1 month after Missouri voters resoundingly approve Amendment 3, granting abortion rights, Republican lawmakers will look at a new amendment restricting those rights. And our quote of the week is from defeated Democrat presidential nominee, Vice President Kamala Harris. What does her political future look like now? Also, the Trump tariffs and violent threats against the president-elect's cabinet nominees. Former Missouri Governor Eric Greitens seeking a job in the Trump administration and a win in court for Missouri's voter ID law. But we begin with the shooting death of 16-year-old Colin Brown of O'Fallon, Illinois. He was hit by errant gunfire on Interstate 55 in South St. Louis as his dad was driving him home from Colin's hockey game. He played for his high school, CBC, as well as the Afton Central States club team. He saved lives as an organ donor. The St. Louis Blues honored him before their game last night.
Colin Brown was a hockey player. He played the game with passion, with determination, and with a love for the game and for his teammates. Please join the Blues and the entire hockey community in a moment of silence as we honor the spirit of Colin Brown and lift his family and friends in our thoughts and in our hearts.
Those family and friends, teammates, and hospital staff lined hospital hallways for Colin's walk of life as he was taken to donate his organs Wednesday, 4 days after he was shot. One of his coaches says that his organs saved 4 lives at least. There's been an overwhelming outpouring of support for Calvin and his family. Police say he was hit by a bullet from a rolling gun battle nearby. There's been no arrest. John, people generally seem to want 2 things done to address this kind of thing: more police and fewer guns. Yet the people we elect, the people we pay to get those things done, never do it. I mean, it's just case after case like this.
Yeah.
Not just in the city.
And a thing like this, clearly that was a gang-involved gun battle going down the highway.
It had nothing to do with Colin.
It had nothing to do with Colin. And what an unspeakable tragedy. You can't even think of what the parents are going through right now. But this gang activity that is pervasive in St. Louis, you know, we have a strike force here that is geared to go after these gangs, and the city police don't really participate in it. So there's multiple problems, structural problems, and the lack of support of law enforcement that comes from too many of our elected officials remains a problem. But you know, when these kinds of things happen, and all you can do is shake your head, pray for the family, and hope that we get our act together as a community, because lawlessness is exactly what's causing and driving these kinds of tragedies.
Michael?
Well, I agree with everything John said, and I would also add in that the access to guns in our society today is insane. And you know, the fact that I actually know somebody who perished in a similar situation on Highway 55 several years ago. This is crazy, and to see this young man's life cut short, who had so much promise. I mean, and to see this community who's standing up for him. I don't know when we're all going to say enough is enough, but I don't think we can omit the gun from the conversation.
Well, he brings up the gun, but we also remember the volleyball player visiting from Tennessee. People brought that up. It's right. It's not just the weapons, but it is that lawless culture. That you can do whatever you want. You can speed in a stolen car down the middle of downtown, and that young woman escaped with her life but lost her legs. Yeah, and it is more than just the gun, but the guns are all but certain to be illegal, right? And these gang members that we have in St. Louis are part of a network, national network of gang members. They're shipping illegal guns back and forth all over this country. And those kinds of enterprises, it's organized crime. And people much senior to the young people that are shooting these guns are recruiting these young people and putting them in gangs and having them steal cars and having them shoot, having them deal drugs. And they're using juveniles to do it. And it's organized crime, and we need to take it very seriously. Your thoughts about that?
Well, and it's going to take law enforcement. And unfortunately, we've had this debate in St. Louis and across this country over the last several years of defunding the police. Well, we're living through the consequences of what that means. And by the way, I think this entire debate may be part of the reason that the Democrats are sitting on the outside in this presidential election.
Missouri Republicans are now targeting laws that restrict young people from having certain kinds of guns in the state's largest cities, St. Louis and Kansas City, both controlled by Democrats. Republican Senator-elect Brad Hudson of Southwest Missouri will pre-file legislation tomorrow to curb local ordinances that he says infringe upon Second Amendment rights. St. Louis and Kansas City have ordinances banning guns for those 18 and under and requiring permits for all ages to open carry. Republican Attorney General Andrew Bailey says he'll sue to stop a new ordinance in Jackson County, home to Kansas City, banning the purchase, possession, or transfer of guns by people 21 and younger. That ordinance was passed in response to the deadly mass shooting at the Chiefs Super Bowl victory and parade and rally earlier this year. Michael Bailey says the Second Amendment's right to carry a gun is inalienable. Is he right?
I think it's a short-sighted interpretation, and ultimately, I don't understand what's up with the Republican Party in the state of Missouri. Well, I realize we're a Republican state, but they like the benefits of what comes from St. Louis and Kansas City. We live in a different world when it comes to guns, and we have a legislature who doesn't want to give us the tools to be able to address fighting crime, yet wants to hold us accountable for the lawlessness that exists and the access to these guns. We're going to have to figure this out as a state, both as Republicans and Democrats, that gun laws may need to be different in different areas because it's common sense.
Why do state Republicans want to make it easier for young people to carry dangerous weapons in the city of St. Louis and Kansas City?
Well, I think you got to understand there's a vast cultural difference between the lives of most people that live and are raised in rural communities. There you've got kids, 12, 13, 15 years old. Their dad's taking them hunting. Deer season's upon us. And it's a cultural thing, and I think there's a fear that the gun restrictions are going to curtail that activity. On the other hand, it seems reasonable to me that you would allow local communities like the city of St. Louis and like Kansas City to put some age restrictions on who's going to be toting these guns around. They're not out there using these guns to attack deer. No, they're having shootout battles down the highway and killing innocent people. So I would hope there would be some receptivity to that kind of, seems to me, common sense.
But there almost needs to be an acknowledgement inside the Republican Party that this ridiculous purity to guns has to be dealt with. I mean, you know, there's a reason that these folks are introducing this stuff because it works in their elections. And people aren't seeing common sense. And what's happening is we're seeing the consequences happen in St. Louis and Kansas City, which will ultimately affect these legislators who are putting this type of legislation in.
Yeah, I do think that the kids in St. Louis that are carrying guns out there and shooting them down the highway won't be affected whatsoever by these ordinances.
Like Amendment 2, Amendment 1, the right to free speech and free religion, is absolute, right? But there are restrictions on it.
Of course.
And maybe there will be on...
Well, I think this is the great debate right now happening in our country. Unfortunately, I think we made the decision on this debate years and years ago. I don't think we're going to change major gun laws in this country.
While Missouri's Attorney General wants no restrictions on guns, he says he will seek restrictions on abortions, even though Missouri's Constitution now has an absolute right to an abortion with the passage of Amendment 3 just last month. Mr. Andrew Bailey, the Attorney General, has issued a legal opinion on Amendment 3's passage. He says the state can still enforce laws requiring parental consent for minors seeking an abortion. The opinion apparently comes at the request of Republican Governor-elect Mike Kehoe. Planned Parenthood is suing Bailey, among others, over the state's mandatory 72-hour waiting period and pelvic exam requirement to get abortions. Amendment 3 takes effect on Thursday. It does allow lawmakers to restrict abortions after viability, which is generally the midpoint of a pregnancy. Republicans, however, plan to propose another amendment to allow further restrictions and further define this. John, haven't the people spoken?
Spoke a little bit, but nobody wants, first of all, viability is not defined in Amendment 3. So the state absolutely has an obligation to define what viability is and to ban late-term abortions except to save the life of the mother. And I think that's a majoritarian position. I think the voters will support that. I know the voters support parental consent for a minor getting an abortion. So I think there are some meaningful and significant reforms that we can put in place to make abortion as rare as possible.
Amendment 3 is wide open, right? No question.
Yep.
No restrictions. Shouldn't it be better defined? Isn't this where you kind of wanted the process to head?
This is what Missouri voters spoke and chose, and they chose it overwhelmingly. And it's no surprise that the Republicans now want to overturn the will of the people. But let's talk about what's going to happen in reality now. For the next 10 years, this is essentially what we're going to litigate in elections in the state of Missouri, is this continued chipping away at abortion rights and the pushback that happens. I wish I was a lawyer in this situation because they're going to make a lot of money.
Most people believe that baby merits protection, at least at some point during the pregnancy.
Missouri's law requiring voters to show photo ID to cast a ballot scores a big win in court. Missouri's outgoing Republican Secretary of State Jay Ashcroft says Missouri's photo ID law is a blueprint for other states to follow. The NAACP claimed Missouri's photo ID law requirement was unconstitutional, aimed at lowering minority turnout in elections. The case is now headed to the Missouri Supreme Court on appeal. Michael, why is it wrong to require people to show a photo ID? Are you okay with this?
Well, ultimately, the Constitution says you don't need to have a photo, and it's hard to believe, but yes, there are some people who don't have access to photo IDs. This ship has sailed. We've had voter ID now in the state of Missouri. This litigation will continue to go on. It's unfortunate, but this is the law, and we can continue to talk about it, but I don't see it changing.
Is the true thing here on Republican side who overwhelmingly support this just to lower minority turnout?
No, it's to ensure election integrity. You have to have a photo ID to do practically anything in this country, and there's nothing onerous about having a photo ID requirement, plus the state will pick up the tab if you don't have one to give you one.
Up next on Hancock and Kelley, Donald Trump talks tariffs. He talks tariffs a lot, and members of his cabinet, or members of his cabinet-to-be, the nominees, now facing bomb threats